Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dishing with Stephanie's Dish, the podcast where we talk to cool people in the food space. We talk to a lot of cookbook authors, and today I'm excited to talk to Sally Ekus. She is a literary agent, which, if you've written books or you're trying to get a book published, you know how important the agent process is. She leads a boutique culinary and lifestyle division via JVN LAINC. Did I get it right?
Yeah, JV in LA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
lead the Ekus Group.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I lead the Ekus Group. So we're a culinary and lifestyle division within a broader agency.
And the Ekus Group was started by your mom, who's
Yeah.
a legend.
Yeah.
Um, your mom has like one of the largest cookbook collections that I'm aware of.
In fact, the largest, according to Guinness. Yes.
A couple of months ago, I think maybe it was on your Instagram page, someone posted a picture of her library of her home that is literally looks like a library that you would see in New York City or Washington, D.C. or somewhere fancy with just walls and walls of books. It was so gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a two-store, all cherry wood, gorgeous library. She built the edition. It was a dream edition. It took, a lifetime to build. And it is filled with cookbooks, almost exclusively cookbooks. Her fiction and children's books and other like personal books are scattered elsewhere around the house, but the library is almost entirely culinary. It's really cool.
It's amazing. And your mom's name is Lisa.
Lisa, I guess,
Um,
yeah.
Can I ask you a question? I'm going to go
Sure,
all over the place here, but
sure, please.
um, I have a daughter and only one daughter and no sons, so my only child. And there are things that we have in common about cooking and about food. And I always think like, oh, maybe she'll follow in my footsteps. But then she's quick to point out like, no, I'm never doing that. But then
Yeah.
she's sort of leaning sort of my way. How did that work with you and being in the publishing space?
Yeah, so how old is your daughter now?
26.
Okay. Yeah, so growing up, my mom had this vibrant culinary business. At the time, it was a PR agency before we did agenting. And it was never supposed to be a family business. She never pressured me or said, maybe one day. In fact, it was just like if you had asked me before I started working with her, what does Lisa do for a living? I would have said something with books and something in food. So I was like growing up in this and I was immersed and sort of absorbing by osmosis. And, in my younger years, I would be like collating press kits for PR campaigns. And, I was like earning a allowance,
Yep.
mailing catalogs and whatnot. But it wasn't some she was really like, whatever you want to do, follow your heart. I was on a different path. I went to school for counseling, and I was about to go for a master's in social work, and I deferred. I broke up with a bad decision, moved home, started helping out at the agency, and realized that I'd been informally training for this my whole life. I really fell in love with it. And I was very fortunate to step into like the legacy of her reputation, and then also once we decided this is something I wanted to do, talk about what the succession plan would look like, and then really carve out my own vibe and skill set and cultivate my own list supporting her list. And so it was really a unintentional natural progression that then became quite intentional and quite effortful. So I think that's kind of why it worked out. And if but it's hard to say in hindsight.
It's funny too. You talk about this like being in training of knowing this thing and you not
Yes.
even really realizing that until you've
Yes.
left and gone to do something else. And also, it does track that you were going to be a social worker,
Absolutely.
therapist, and now you're an agent.
Yeah, I somewhat sarcastically, but realistically acknowledge that I was trained in crisis counseling, active listening, and negotiation. So all of those things play a very big role in the work that I do as a literary agent working with books. But, at the end of the day, it is a book. It is, not somebody's, well, it is somebody's mental well-being, but in a different light. So I
Yes.
I get to utilize those skills all the time, and it feels quite lucky. And it's really the client management and author care and author advocacy that I love so much, and that has kept me in this business for as long as it has.
What is it about cookbooks in particular that makes you solely focus on that?
Well, that I stepped into, that was Lisa's area of expertise. She was one of the very first cookbook publicist. She essentially created the category of culinary publicity before there were massive agencies handling, influencers and brand campaigns. And so that was her area of expertise. So that's what I stepped into and was hyper mentored in. And I also equally just fell in love with it. I mean, there are many different things that bring people together. And at the end of the day, it feels like food is that one through line. Everyone has some relationship to food, recipes, cooking, memory, good, bad, complicated, probably somewhere in the middle. And so to have a role in helping to bring that to fruition in published form is a tremendous honor.
You are the publisher or the agent actually of
Right.
Entertaining 101 with Beth Lamonic,
Yeah.
and we
Yes.
just talked with her last.
Yeah, I listened to that. It was such a fun
Yeah,
conversation.
she was pretty great. And the weirdest thing happened to me the other day. I was at my radio partner's office and we were talking about a project and she had a stack of cookbooks and I was like, "Oh, what are you working on?" She's like, "Oh, I'm helping our friend from Muriel, Karin Tomlinson, put her proposal together." And
Oh
I'm,
my gosh.
"Oh, that's interesting." And she goes, "Yeah, she's got a really great agent already." And I'm like, "Who's her agent?" And it's you.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm so excited to be working with her. Yep, yep. I'm
Her point
honored.
of view on food and her storytelling of the purveyors that she works with
Yes.
and her just completely beautiful recipes. I'm
Yeah.
so excited for you and I'm so excited for that book.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's a great example of really early development. Where I often say that I work with people, not proposals. We can get to the proposal. I help guide people through that process as an agent. And this is a great example where it's like I'm so captivated by the food and the media attention and the accolades and the intentionality of what is happening from the farm to the plate. And so, sometimes chefs work with writers or collaborators to help bring that to the printed page. And that's where we're at with that project. So it's in very early stages, which is super exciting.
Yeah, you're gonna not be disappointed. She is just a great person. She's a great storyteller and
Yeah.
that you had a really good eye to pick her up because I think
Oh,
she's
thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
What other projects do you have on the docket right now that you're excited about? I see potluck desserts behind you.
Oh yeah, Justin Burke, Potluck Desserts. Justin's book came out the same day as Beth's, just a couple weeks ago. And I try to rotate in my background the books that are sort of newly rotating. So the Meathead Method over here, that is Meathead's second book. His first book called Meathead came out almost 10 years ago, and it's all both books are all about the science and art and science of barbecue and grilling and outdoor cooking. I have books in a bunch of different levels of activity. So that's also fun because I have something that's like, proposal and development and then things that are coming out. So it really runs the gamut.
When
I just saw Frankie Gaw, whose Instagram handle is Little Fat Boy Frankie. He's up for a James Beard Media Award and he just turned in the manuscript for his second book called Asian Americana. So I'm really excited about that. So it's really, all levels of development over here.
once someone does their first book, is it easier to market them the second time around?
Great question. I find that yes, because really once that first book is to publishers need you to have or want you to have a big platform to warrant signing a book deal. And then the book helps sort of level up that platform promotion, name recognition, certainly moving beyond like the core community of that author. It helps introduce new readers, new cooks, new fans to that person's work. And so I find that, that second book, third book, fourth book, 10th book really helps just keep that momentum going.
You wrote something recently on your Substack that people should follow you because you're a good follow.
Thank you.
Um, that I really have spent a lot of time thinking about, and I'm probably going to get the name of the author wrong, so you may have to
Oh, we
correct
can
me.
figure it
But
out together. Yeah.
the idea of it is that a new cookbook writer launched a book tour in a way that was a little unconventional and in some ways maybe controversial because instead of the usual like going out to the booksellers and having a Q&A and talking, she hired her friend who is a comedian and really created more of like I'll call it in air quotes, like a Real Housewives type in-person cooking experience that there was cooking demonstration, there was talking about the book. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, actually.
Oh, okay. I might be
Was it
getting
one
it
of my
confused.
clients or maybe a reshare?
I think it's a reshare because the
Oh,
idea
okay.
was she has been on the New York Times bestseller list now with her book for a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
And it was the literary agencies kind of looked down on what she did a little bit because it was unconventional and maybe a
I
little
mean,
pastiche.
I love
I
unconventional.
kind of did too. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that because I'm getting ready to launch my own tour and thinking about like locations, and
Yeah.
it really blew my mind to think, like for me in particular and people that have really strong performing skills, like
Yes.
I would say I'm more of a performer of cooking content than I am of necessarily creating recipes. I do recipe development, but it's more
Yeah.
about the presentation of it. And I think that's so cool to think about that we're bringing books into this digital age in that way.
Absolutely. So my overarching advice with anything in publishing is it depends and you do you. Like what fits for one person is not one size fits all for the other book or other campaigns. And so I love to share information, whether it's on my Substack, Not So Secret Agent, or on my social, or just with my clients. Like I like to share, here's an example, or here's 5 examples of what another author has done. What is helpful? What resonates with you? And like move on from the rest, you know? How can you evolve this into your own campaign? And cooking is such a tactile experience. It's so experiential in and of itself. It's such a connector. It also can be so beautiful alone. Like, do what feels right for you, your book, and share in a way that feels true to you, because that's what I think really attracts people to come out first and foremost and like spend their free time and any sort of additional resources they may have. And make it fun and memorable. I mean, I think more and more we see brands and individual authors and companies just evolving, the term like activation into experiences, into just moments that matter.
You mentioned your Substack Not So Secret Agent, and I'm wondering if Substack is changing or improving the landscape for cookbook authors.
I think Substack's changing all kinds of things. It used to be that at least as a cookbook agent, we would sort of scout on Instagram or TikTok, and now Substack is certainly a major player. And there's a ton of food content and creators on Substack, but even just a year ago when I got on, there was a lot less, and I think there's still a lot more room because there's so many hyper focused areas of interest in foods that you have this opportunity. Maybe you can't land a publishing deal, but if you can build a community of the people that want your recipes, your voice, your food, whatever it is in that specific space, go for it. I mean, you can be so hyper focused and really build this beautiful community. And I love the Substack ecosystem. It's been incredibly generous to me, and I try to give back as much as possible. Like the recommendations and resharing and discoverability aspect of Substack has been a really beautiful thing to experience.
They've really democratized the idea of podcasting too. Like,
Yes.
I've been
Yeah.
podcasting for 7 years, actually longer than that, maybe
Mhm.
even
Oh,
closer to like 9.
wow.
Well, I was a broadcaster, so it made
Right, right,
sense
right,
to go from radio to developing a podcast space.
right.
And just the ease of ability of doing it now, before
Yes,
you had to have special equipment and people to host it, and it's just gotten so much simpler. And we're also seeing that, I think, with video, that
right,
Substack's making it so easy to go live. You don't necessarily need 10,000 watch hours on YouTube or 3,000
right.
subscribers or whatever, the
I mean,
latest numbers are.
most of my readers come th like my email goes to their actual email inbox, though people find me through Substack, and so it's been fun. I'm not by any means a seasoned or polished content creator, but I've been doing videos as one means of explaining other things about publishing, and just kind of seeing how that resonates with people in their inbox versus other mediums, and it's been really fun. They are super lo-fi and quite off the cuff. But most people that are not tuning in live to me on Substack, they'll find it in their inbox the next morning, which has been really fun too.
I think the lo-fi aspects too are almost what people are looking for.
I hope so, because
I
that's
have
what they're
not,
gonna get.
the TikTok algorithm and I are not friends, probably never will be friends, and I don't understand it at all because I can produce like something that looks great, tastes good, it's just mouth-watering to watch, and then I
Yeah.
can post like a picture of my dog, and that will be the thing that
Right.
goes
Well, I think
viral.
animals will always outperform us on the socials, as they should at this point, you know?
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. A single subject book has popped into the zeitgeist that I think it's a really great book. Sesame, it's called.
Yeah.
And it's like a single ingredient versus, and she takes that single ingredient and uses it in many different ways throughout the book.
Hmm.
You must see like single ingredient books, seasonal books. Like, are there trends in what's hot right now?
Um, I love single ingredient books or single subject. Oftentimes it's a lower recipe count, somewhere between like the 50 to 75 range, as opposed to 75 to 100 or 125. It just feels like a little bit more giftable, a little bit more impulse buy, and it's really fun to see those books. There's always single subject books cropping up, but I think particularly in the shift in the cookbook market, meaning there's like a bigger gap between like creator-led books, big robust cookbooks, and then sort of a place for everyone else. And sometimes that place where you can settle in the sort of for everyone else, if you don't have this massive following, is in a single subject book. That could be your expertise or deeply researched. I don't necessarily think that's so much a trend as it is something that like ebbs and flows and we see a little bit more of on the cookbook shelf because they've always been there, but now people, can nerd out on one thing and they'll go to the cookbook shelf because the food scene just in the zeitgeist has become so popular. Like
Mhm.
there's, strawberry earrings and I've got a sweater with cherries on it. So why not a book about just sesame? It's
Yeah.
it's really a time to celebrate ingredients in food.
When you are on like Instagram or TikTok and you're trying to relax, like you're not working, and I know that's really hard to even do, but
Yeah.
are you following like other creators and other spaces and thinking like, gee, how are they doing this? Or how does that
Um,
work for you?
Well, I would just clarify that I don't go on social to relax, but and also I'm almost always working. However, to answer your actual question, I have most of the people I follow outside of the food space are in the like body inclusivity, body positivity space. I follow some fashion people that are highly inclusive, plus size fashion people that have completely changed my relationship to like even the fact that I said fashion on a podcast interview, like I just never would have been that person a
Sure.
while ago. Um, but it's offered me an opportunity to see like color and textures and textiles and just the lifestyle of how we have a relationship to our closet in a new way. Also the home and space. I sometimes represent outside of the cookbook shelf, and so I like to say that um I represent the home with a focus on the kitchen, but I also, hang out in the living room and I have a tiny human, so I hang out with the kid space. And so it's just focusing on other rooms of the home at times has been really fun too. So that's kind of where I dabble on social as well.
Speaking of kids, I don't know why this comes to mind, but I always get asked, what are the cookbooks that you should be buying for kids? And Better Homes or not, Betty Crocker's Boys and Girls is still like a best-selling book, right?
Yeah.
And then there's one other one that I'm gonna not think of the name right off the top of my head, but there feels like there is kind of a empty space in cooking with kids and cooking with families.
Yeah, there's a few. So I love the ATK books. I think it's a great brand. They've got great recipes for cooking with kids. Deanna Cook, who is a story publishing author, has a bunch of kids books that are awesome. And for me, I think sometimes it's not that there's like a lack of, it's just that there's still space for. And
Mhm.
the tricky part about pitching and representing those books or selling them is it a book for cooking with kids? Is it a book for kids to cook from? And those are different age groups and those are different recipe styles, so much down to like the page and the format and the illustrations or the pictures or the how-to steps. So there's just so many practical considerations and logistical ones that it's a slightly trickier category, but one that we've dabbled in a little bit. And there's some great books, and I think a lot of space for others. The author of Indianish did a kids cookbook as well that I found really fun and just wonderful recipes. I forget the name of the book off the top of my head.
That Indianish was a really cool cookbook.
Yeah, yes.
There's been some just beautiful, texturally colorful books written by people from more diverse backgrounds. And
Yeah.
while it seems like we see a ton of that right now, and we are, it is fairly new in the last 10 years.
Um, it has become magnified and intensified, though our agency, and kudos to Lisa for carving out her space as a literary agent in the representing underrepresented voices from the get-go. It's been a part of the ethos of our agency since day one. And so to see publishers in the past 10 years really prioritizing marginalized voices is amazing and also a little about time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of a controversial question.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes people in the media can be a little snooty about influencers and about social media in particular,
Hmm.
because I think they feel maybe like people are treading on their
Yeah.
authority of space, as
Yeah.
it were. You get people that feel snarky sometimes about like, oh, they're an influencer, it's another influencer cookbook, and kind of eye rolling.
Yeah.
Because there are some not so great cookbooks written by really good content creators, but maybe they're not great at putting it all in a book format, or maybe
Right.
the recipes aren't necessarily great once they get past that beautiful shot. Um, do you think that there'll be like almost a backlash to this whole genre, as it were?
I don't know that it would necessarily be a backlash in that a lot of the creator-led books, both the great ones and the more challenging ones, I think they're the like positive outcome of all of those books is that it has put this spotlight on food and the cookbook shelf. And I think the more people who are interested in what books are on the cookbook shelf, the better. What I do feel, and I've already started feeling this as an agent, is that the shift back to experts or an evolution to what is the next version of people that have really robust followings, capturing their audience in a meaningful way and delivering content that rings true to that audience and honors what the industry is looking for. I'm already hearing that shift from acquiring editors, from publishers that I work really closely with, and even in my own scouting. So I feel like we are moving towards the thank you very much for bringing a spotlight to the shelf, and where are we going and how can we all support the industry at large?
And the trend that we're talking about or hearing about is more expertise,
Yes.
more of
Yeah.
a microscope on something in more detail.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is so fun. I mean, more interest, more books, more food, more deep dives.
And also, like, I mean, we just are scratching the surface about, like, my husband and I are working on books about place of food. So,
Yes.
like, we've written a fiction book about Croatia that has recipe as a component
Yes.
to it.
I'm seeing a lot more crossover among different genres, even between fiction and nonfiction. I was just pitched a proposal, probably the first, maybe it's the second one that has sort of a fictional component to it. And I don't represent fiction. That's for my colleagues at the agency and other agents in the industry. But it is fun to see how food has like penetrated every aspect of our lives, and it's just delightful.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that in just my personal journey. It's keeping it fresh and interesting.
Totally. Yeah.
And, my husband is a writer, as a fiction writer, and for us to like collaborate on a project together in a way
Yes,
that I know what my lane is and he knows what his lane
exactly.
is pretty fun.
Well, I think that's one of the many gifts that have come out of this like creator-led book or just like the intensification of food in the zeitgeist is that people who are an expert in a certain culinary topic could be a consultant on a novel or
For
who
sure.
knows, you know what I mean? And it's blowing the fridge doors wide open.
I feel like it's sort of like the White Lotus effect for books and
Oh man, yeah.
cooking and food generally.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that put that lens
With the
on travel and exotic locales and
yeah.
I just feel like that's the next thing, and I'm gonna be there, I promise.
Cool. Well, it's so fun to just see our beloved culinary space be celebrated across genres.
And like just to get back to as a little kid, going into a bookstore or going into the library and just the
Yeah.
joy of, books have been under attack for the last 20 years as the
Mhm.
Amazonification of the world has happened. But we're seeing in Minneapolis in particular, like lots of local bookstores are opening again and
Oh,
people
yeah.
are making them multi-purpose. So they might be selling cooking things, but also they might have a
Yes.
coffee shop, they might do
Yes.
pastry.
Yeah, my one of my favorite recommendations for authors or aspiring authors or just dear friends is to go to your local independent bookstore and talk to the people that work there, and ideally talk to the owner and the people who make the decisions about what books to bring in. It is a wildly fascinating conversation.
Yeah, it's the best part about a book tour for me is actually like getting to talk
Yeah.
to the people that recommend and sell the books.
And then also buy books there, not just talk
Yes,
to them. Yeah,
and
I'm
lots
sure
of them.
I think that's implied, but you never know. Yeah.
Yes. Sally, it's been a delight to talk to you. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Stephanie.
joining the program today. I'll put links to your Substack.
Great, thank
Also,
you.
your information if I don't know if anyone's listening is thinking about pitches, but if you are,
Yeah, I have really comprehensive nonfiction book proposal guidelines that definitely pertain to those looking to write food books, but also are really applicable to anyone that's looking to learn about publishing. So that's a great link to share. And thank you so much for having me on.
yeah, it's great. And keep pitching me your authors. You have good authors and the books are
Thank you.
great. Beth was a
Thanks.
joy.
Oh, thanks.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.